Now, in my experience, Lutherans don't talk a whole lot about demons, and so if you're a little bit wigged out by today's passage, I'm going to ask you to just stick with me. You see, this passage is awesome, and in my opinion, really applicable to today. We have this man, this man who is possessed by a demon, and Jesus healing him. And when Jesus asks this man who's been living in the tombs, he's been living among dead bodies as opposed to down with the people. He's naked, showing that he's a social outcast, right? He's not fitting into society. When Jesus asks him his name, he says, I am Legion. In some translations, it says, I am Legion and we are many. And that's the demon answering. That is not that man's name. His man is not Legion. We actually never learn his name, but his identity has been so co-opted by this demon that when Jesus asks him his name, the demon responds. I am Legion, which would have been a military term at that time for certain really awful troops, and we are many, trying to portray this military force. I am Legion and we are many. I wonder what our Legion is. I wonder what demons have co-opted us. We might not know that they've co-opted us as this man seems to know, but that is to say, what has taken us away from the living, caused us to live in these tombs, taken over our identities so completely that we don't even know who we are anymore. I think about the Juneteenth holiday, and I wonder what learned patterns of behavior that I have that have caused me to be racist without meaning to. Right? I don't consider myself a racist person, but what patterns of behavior do I have where I just assume certain things? One of our teenagers a few weeks ago started talking about a normal guy, and then he got kind of embarrassed and he wasn't able to expand on what that normal guy was. Finally, he admitted to the group, he said, I just realized that when I think of a normal person, I assume that they're white. Right? That's Legion. That's this demon of society putting thoughts in his head that he didn't even realize he had. I wonder what our Legion is. As we celebrate Pride Month, I wonder how many of us assume couples are men and women, right? I know I did that the other day. Someone was talking about her friend and their babies and their partner, and I just assumed that partner was a man, because part of my Legion is what I grew up learning, right? These systems of behavior that keep me among the dead, and I don't even notice it, that keep me sort of boxed in and from experiencing life and love in its fullest. What is your Legion? And you'll notice in this text, there is no point where Jesus judges the man who has the demon, right? There's no point where he says, how dare you be taken over by this demon? He simply heals the problem. He casts out the demon. And so for those of us who are maybe admitting to ourselves for the first time today that there are things we do that aren't life producing in our world, there's no judgment here. I am Legion and we are many, and Jesus sees that demon and casts it out. So much so that when folks come to see the man and Jesus, he is sitting fully clothed, fully coherent. Jesus casts out that demon and provides this man with a new life, where he can go talk about the life-giving Spirit of God throughout his land. This story is of death and resurrection, that when we bring our demons before Jesus, when we show God our Legion, we are healed. Not partially, but completely. And for those of us stuck in cycles of behavior that are not life-giving, it might not feel that way, but that's what it means to be a child of God, right? We say that we are both sinner and saint every single day. We say that we died to the world and are resurrected with Christ every single day, sometimes every hour or every minute. So the good news for us today is that we can bring our Legion before God. We can say we are many. Our learned behaviors that are death-giving, our learned behaviors that keep us in those tombs, the ways that we don't live fully as the children of God you created us to be, God will take those away. God says, go and tell the good news. Go and spread love and life because I have taken away your demons. And there is nothing you can do to deserve that. There's nothing your neighbor did to deserve that grace. And there's nothing you can do that will stop you from deserving that grace because I do not judge your demons. God does not judge our demons. And so we don't have to be afraid of them. Part of letting God take them away is recognizing where we've messed up, where we've gotten angry instead of curious, where we've judged instead of loved. The ways that we hold our demons close because it feels safer than stepping into the life, the light, the world, the places where we can perpetuate God's love. One really small example I have of this, and I like to start with really small examples because they feel possible to me to replicate. One really small example of this is that when I went to seminary, I started learning all these things about language and about how Christianity has been colonialized and how when we say you may be seated, there's a weird power dynamic in worship. If the person in charge says you may be seated, they're putting themselves in a place of power. And they're teaching unconsciously those who are worshiping that they don't get to be seated unless they're told they can be seated, which is both colonial and ableist. And for people who have a hard time standing for a long time, it creates a weird power dynamic. As an able-bodied person who's been to worship my whole life, I had not noticed that dynamic. So something that I worked on in seminary was changing my language to please be seated, or I invite you to be seated. And always saying stand as you are able, or we invite you to stand, sort of softening that language to lessen the power dynamic there. But if I get stressed, on the days in worship where I'm given a role I wasn't expecting, or maybe I just pray and I think my words come out really ineloquently, do you know what comes right back? You may be seated. This colonial language that isn't causing huge harm in the world, but is also not extending God's grace to the world. And when I get stressed, that learned behavior comes back on me. It becomes another one of my demons. But God can heal you from that. God can invite you to change your actions. When you offer them up, God sends those demons out and you're given a chance to be more life-giving. So I invite you today, and every day really, to identify just one of those demons, one learned behavior that's keeping you living in the tombs, preventing you from living in the town with the life, preventing you from extending life to those around you, and find a change. And when you mess up, and you're going to mess it up, keep trying. Keep rising again with Christ, that we might all have more love and life in our world.